Need psychotherapy online or in person? Check out tinyurl.com/THT psychotherapy. The George Brassey podcast is made possible with funding provided from Brassey Global Strategies, LLC, a leading political consulting, public policy, government affairs, and research firm. Are you interested in running for elected office? Need advice? Call or email George, 708-769-5015. Brassey Global Strategies 1@gmail.com.
Freeze doesn't stop Chicago Heights City Council from taking care of business. Freeze doesn't stop Chicago Heights City Council from taking care of business, Chicago Heights, Illinois, despite some members of the council being absent, freezing weather and meeting remotely due to COVID restrictions. On Tuesday night, the Chicago Heights City Council approved a number of projects to continue moving forward the city's beautification projects. Architectural services. With Alderman Vincent Zaranti sitting in as acting mayor for Mayor David Gonzalez, the council approved an agreement for architectural services with TRIA Architecture. Under the $23,000 agreement, TRIA will provide a space needs analysis of the municipal garage and water department facilities. The company will analyze existing facilities and determine whether an upgrade or a totally new facility is needed, based on current and future needs. TRIA has provided architectural services for other local municipalities such as Country Club Hills, designing its amphitheater, storage and fleet maintenance facilities, and upgrading its recreational center. Morton Arboretum Grant. The council voted to accept an award of $15,000 from the Morton Arboretum through its Urban and Community Forestry Grant. The grant will pay for a tree inventory of the city. Funding for the grant is provided by the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Urban and Community Forestry Program. It offers urban and community forestry grants to municipalities, which are required to pass a tree preservation/protection ordinance before the end of the grant period. Engineering services. The council also approved proposals totaling $842,000 for engineering services for various city infrastructure projects. Chief of Staff Karen Zarant said the projects include sewer and resurfacing work around the city. The council approved an agreement with Grand Capital, North America, LLC, to induce the sale and development of the city-owned real estate at 560 and 570 West Lincoln Highway. Jack Hines, city economic development consultant, said the parcels are the sites of the former Lorenzetti's restaurant and car lot next to it. Grand Rapid Capital has done a number of developments in the city. In other business, Chief of Staff Karen Zarant gave the council an update on January's Illinois Department of Public Health vaccination clinic, hosted by the city. She said about 250 people registered online. The city plans to hold another vaccination clinic, in conjunction with IDPH, in February. Chicago Heights Fire Chief Jeffrey Springer announced the promotion of Captain Tony Mascalino to Assistant Fire Chief. The council approved a redevelopment agreement to induce the sale of the city-owned surplus real estate at 1902 Euclid Avenue, through the city's Abandoned Property Acquisition Program. And the city's city towing services agreement was renewed. Freeze doesn't stop Chicago Heights City Council from taking care of business.
Before we get to the interview, I just want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Union Signs and Printing. Union Signs and Printing is a union sign shop located near Chicago, Illinois, that specializes in the production of corrugated plastic lawn signs used in applications ranging from political and election usages to unions, schools, and businesses. They also produce a vast array of other products, including American-made, union-printed t-shirts, banners, bio cards, literature, door hangers, business cards, and trifold. Get a hold of Union Signs and Printing at 740-1688 or find them on the internet at unionsignsandprinting.com. And don't forget to tell them you heard about their services on the George Brassey podcast. I'm so glad to welcome our next guest, Emily Biegel, to the podcast. Emily holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign in special education and a master's of business administration from Northern Illinois University. Emily, thanks for coming on my podcast.
Hi, George. Thanks for having me.
Emily, so that's who you are on paper. Tell the audience a little bit about who is Emily the person, who is Emily the candidate.
Sure. So, yes, I did go to U of I in Urbana-Champaign for my undergrad. And I ultimately ended up with a teaching certificate in master's work from Roosevelt University. So I was a career changer and didn't start teaching until I was 30. And this is my 10th year teaching. So for those of you keeping track, yes, I do turn 40 this April. I am a Frankfort resident. I have been since 1996. I moved there in the middle of high school. I am married. I am a mom of 2 children. I have a daughter age 8 and a son age 5. And I am running for the school board because I think that it is a good place for me to lend my expertise as an educator, but also because I have been volunteering and serving my community forever. When I was a kid, a teenager, a young adult, and now as a mom, that is something that I have done. And I really view serving on the school board as an extension of that. And I do think that a high school board is a good fit for me based on my experience.
Tell the audience, if they weren't familiar with School District 210, what schools make up the school district and where are they located?
Yeah, for sure. So that is the Lincoln Way School District. And we currently have 3 schools in the district. So Lincoln Way East, which is in Frankfort, Lincoln Way Central, and then Lincoln Way West. And it encompasses students from many communities in the area, including Manhattan, New Lenox, Mokina, Frankfort, and the unincorporated part of Frankfort, Frankfort Square.
What are your feelings about Lincoln Way North? I believe there's another campus that is no longer having students. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we did have a 4th school, Lincoln Way North in Frankfort Square. And I have, I guess I have emotions about it, right? Like, it's sad to see a district lose a school. It's sad to see students have to, use 3 buildings instead of 4. It's sad for a community to lose a resource that had a beautiful theater in there. The Illinois Philharmonic would perform in there. And then it's hard to not understand the practical reasons, the financial reasons, why a school needed to be closed because of everything, the Lincoln Way District had been through. So I don't envy anyone who had to make that decision. I don't know if I would have made the same decision or not. I don't know. But I do wish that there was a way to still have the 4 schools, but real life is not necessarily based on wishes. So that isn't something that I can, wave a magic wand and learn to do. But I do wish it had gone down differently in our community.
Does the school district still maintain and own the property that you're aware of?
As far as I am aware, yes. There was some discussion in one of the previous school board meetings, and the rhetoric that was used was like, if it sells or when it sells. I know there's a couple things at play, but that was, the terminology that was used. So to my knowledge, yes, it is still.
Emily, looking at your resume, it says that you have a background in business and special ed. Those are 2 things that one usually wouldn't think would go together. Can you talk about the interest in both for you personally?
Yeah. For sure. So, when I was in high school, one of my religion classes, the class was service in the community, and I was placed at a high needs school in the south suburbs. And so I would go there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I would volunteer in the classrooms. And it was the severe and profound setting, and I loved it. And I thought that like this was for me, and this was it, and this is what I should be doing. And so when I applied to U of I applied to be a teacher, and I applied for and received a tuition waiver to be a special education teacher, and made all of these decisions at 17 that I thought were going to just be perfect for the rest of my life. And I got down to U of I, and there were some things that I was really good at, and there were some things that I wasn't really good at. Um, the practical realities of all of the different settings that I needed to master within special education um, were not all settings that I was good at. And so I ended up graduating with just a degree and not a certification. So I did get my bachelor's degree, and I sort of took some time to figure things out. And I had previously worked in transportation, and so I went back to working in transportation. And I thought that, when I was there, the jobs that looked appealing to me were to be, on the sales executive side. So I went back to school and I started working on my master's in business, so that I could have some, practical experience, but also some academic information. And I did. I really liked that job, but I felt this pull towards education, because when I was working in sales, the parts that I really liked the best were educating my customers about how they could create efficiencies within their supply chain, or about the latest technology that we had available to really make their production and packing more efficient. And so I then discovered that I could put like all of those passions together, which you say is unusual, right? So my desire to sort of be within and study business, and also to educate. And so I went back and I got my teaching certificate and finished the master's work at Roosevelt University. And I then did my student teaching, and my first job was a one class job. I taught one section, 1 hour of the day at Downers Grove South. And then I was lucky enough to be hired full-time as a teacher at TF North the next year.
Emily, looking at some of the things that you want to do for the Lincoln Way district, you say you want to increase the student voice. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, for sure. So in the classroom and in the community, I think, having everybody find their voice and use their voice and realize how powerful their own voice is something that I am passionate about. And so in the classroom setting, for sure, I am always sort of teaching students how, to use that voice, and also showing them how important that voice is to me in creating a classroom community. And some of the ways that I have been able to do that have been through voting field trips. I just posted on my Facebook page today that last year on this day, the Governor Pritzker, came to our school and signed Senate Bill 1970. And Senate Bill 1970 is an amendment to the election code in the state of Illinois. And it entitles students to take 2 hours from their school day without penalty to go and vote. And, that can be done in a myriad of ways. And at our district, that is done with voting field trips. And these voting field trips were really the catalyst for this legislation. So in 2018, I took some students to vote. We were able to walk from our school to the library. And I think about 25, 30 students were with us on that trip, but also on that trip were school board members, community members, and legislators. And so Senator L.G. Sims was with us, and he had some discussions with the students and with the school board members. And it really became apparent that like student schedules are as jam-packed as, adult schedules. And they have after-school activities, and they have sports, and they have jobs. And that being able to vote during the school day and having a way to get there and back that, they didn't have to worry about transportation was really helpful. And so through those conversations, he introduced the legislation, and the students were there every step of the way. They filled out witness slips. They went down to Springfield to testify. And then we ultimately were able to see the governor come to our school and sign it. And so those voting field trips, I think are something that would be great for every school district. And in fact, some school districts have picked it up. I think a school in Joliet took a voting field trip after the legislation was signed. And I would love to see something like that at the Lincoln Way districts. I think it's a great way for students to have real life civics lessons, to become lifelong voters, and to see the power of their voice.
Emily, is this the first time you've run for elected office?
It is. I've always been pretty engaged with what has been going on, but this is the first time that I have run. It was always sort of like something I would like to do, and I kept thinking that like maybe it wasn't the right time, and maybe I'd wait until my kids were older, and like if I had to get a babysitter for a meeting, then they would go to bed easily for that babysitter and those kind of things. But I don't know that there ever is going to be like that ideal time. And it is something that I'm very interested in and want to do, and want to volunteer in our community in this way. So I decided, why not do it now? So I did.
Tell us a little bit about a group you helped co-found, the Southwest Suburban Activists.
Yeah, sure. So I and 4 other women did co-found Southwest Suburban Activists. And I think sometimes activists and that term can be, given a bad rap and seen as sort of, I don't know, a bit strident. But it really is just another way for people to amplify their voice and to get involved. And so that is what we have done. We formally organized in 2017, but we had, been informally meeting at my house and talking about ways that we could provide legislators with the political will to pass the legislation that we wanted to see happen, and or provide legislators the political will to not pass legislation that we did not want to happen. Not everything went our way. Because just because one group of people thinks one way doesn't mean that everybody does. But yeah, for about 4 years now, we've been working pretty steadily together, and we've been working on local issues and campaigns. We, helped a little bit with some federal and statewide, local and campaigns and issues, and then, we've done other things. There's a women's shelter that we will help at sometimes. We've cooked dinner there before, and raised awareness for any time that they would have needs to fill. And just basically, I think activism, sometimes we have this preconceived notion of what it encompasses, but it really can encompass all parts of your life, right? And it really is just advocating and taking action on a set of ideals or ideas. And that's what we have done these last 4 years.
Emily, are you running with a group of people? Are you running on your own? How many seats are up on the board? What does your campaign strategy look like in a pandemic as well?
Sure. So there are 4 seats up. So there's a 2-year seat up, and there is 1 person running for that seat. And then there are 3 4-year seats and there are 5 candidates. And right now there are, at least that I'm aware of, there are not groups or slates of candidates. I think that, the union will endorse some candidates, and I would be thrilled to work alongside the candidates that end up being endorsed by the union, if that happens to also be me. But I think in general, unless anything changes, right now everyone is running a solo campaign. And when the pandemic hit in March, that did provide lots of lessons for us. We were working on some other campaigns, my friends and I, and the things that we were used to doing, right? Like knocking on doors and having, town halls and meet and greets aren't things that we were, very quickly able to do. And so we've been able to sort of pivot. I'm doing some virtual meet and greets, and those have gone over pretty well, actually. I think we're all used to Zoom at this point, and so it has been a good way for people to be able to fit those into their everyday lives, right? Like they don't have to get a babysitter to go somewhere. They can just turn on their computer. We're continuing our efforts with postcarding, and there will, maybe be some texting and things like that. But there's still some adjusting and learning how to do that. And I think that also the social media aspect can't be overlooked as a way to also reach voters.
Emily, when you refer to the union, are you referring to the teachers union?
I am. Yes. Thanks for clarifying.
Do they generally play a big role in school board elections in the Lincoln Way area?
I don't know on like the campaign side, you know what I mean, what that looks like from the back end. But as an observer in the past and a voter in the past, it does seem that the voters do respect the teachers union's choice of candidates, and in general that it has helped those people get elected.
Emily, what are 2 books that you'd recommend to the audience that have been influential or important to you as a person and a candidate?
Okay, so my all-time favorite book for, as of today, right? Like I'm always open to changing that, but as of today, my all-time favorite book is A Wrinkle in Time, and I love it. I love it for its the lessons on persevering, the lessons on fighting the darkness, and the lessons on social justice. And so I would definitely recommend that. Maybe you've seen the movie and the movie is good, but the book is better. So I definitely recommend that.
Who is the author of that book, Emily?
The author of A Wrinkle in Time. Now, see, I should have gotten my copy out, and I'm telling you, it's my all-time favorite book of all the land, and it is, but I cannot. Madeline L'Engle is the author of A Wrinkle in Time, and it's a fiction book. I think it's considered a classic at this point.
And what's the second book you would recommend?
Okay, yep, and then the second book that I would recommend is The Hate You Give, I think, is another book that has had influence on me, influence on seeing a youth perspective, influence on being able to see, some race relations within our country, and also in terms of campaigns, it's a YA book, and I am passionate about amplifying student voice and the youth perspective. So I think that fits into that category nicely.
Can you tell the audience what YA means as well?
Sure. It means young adult. And I do actually, I read a lot of young adult. I like to read what my students are reading. I like to know, what they're thinking and what they are gravitating towards. So I do read a lot of young adult fiction.
Emily, where can the people find you on the internet?
Right now, I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. They are Emily Biegel for Lincoln Way 210. And I also have a hashtag. And if you typed that into, I think, both of those sites, you would be able to find me. And that is hashtag Biegel for LW210.
Emily, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. This was great, George.
Help George stay on the Chicago Heights City Council. Go and donate today at tinyurl.com/AldermanGeorge 2023. Need more George? Like his pages on Facebook. Friends of George Brassey PAC, Fifth Ward Business Alliance, Chicago Heights Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, and the George Brassey Podcast.